Welcome to this edition of the Hoosier Basketball Experience. I'm your host, Phil Eisenbarger. How do we define the Hoosier Basketball Experience? Well, we have to hear from the people who actually experienced it themselves. We have to look at how it shaped those folks. We have the history books and the statistical accounts, but we have to hear from those who saw it, felt it, and embraced it. Join us as we interview legends who helped define the Hoosier basketball experience. Today's guest is one of those people. Basketball in Indiana has left its mark across the state, but nowhere exceeds Southern Indiana when it comes to basketball culture. Sellersburg is a perfect example, then and now. The then might be defined by a dad coaching his son to great individual and team success for the Silver Creek Dragons in the 60s. The now might start with recent state championships won by boys and girls basketball, as well as their cheerleaders. After winning 58 games in high school while scoring over 1,400 points, this coach's son went on to IU greatness as one of Bob Knight's first recruits. A Final Four, CCA, and Big Ten championships to go with the magical, undefeated regular season in 1975 all sit on his resume. Drafted by both the NBA and the ABA, he played in both leagues. All pretty good for a kid from Silver Creek. I know him as Greeno, and you know him as number 34, Steve Green, and I guarantee you're going to like him and meet him when we come back.
The Hoosier Basketball Trivia Question, sponsored by Christy, Farrow, Lee, and Bell. Serious injury isn't what we do, it's all we do. Today's question, what year did class basketball begin in Indiana? The answer after the break. Now our trivia question answered, sponsored by Christy, Farrow, Lee, and Bell. Serious injury isn't what we do, it's all we do. Today's question, what year did class basketball begin in Indiana? The answer, 1997.
Greeno, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Iceman. Hey, it's good to be here. Let's chat. What are we going to talk about?
Well,
you and I get together, we never have enough to talk about, so hopefully your list is long.
We're going to talk a lot about basketball,
Okay.
about high school basketball,
Got
about
it.
college basketball,
Love
about
it.
professional basketball. But before we even get there,
Okay.
we want to talk about what you did after playing. First, you went to dental school.
Sure did.
Talk about going to dental school and being a dentist for so many years.
Sure. I think I stopped playing in '84. In fact, excuse me, I stopped playing in '80, graduated in '84. But that summer before 1980, when I knew my playing days were over, I went to Italy to play one last year.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't to get back in the league. It was, hey, Lana,
One last go.
Lana and my wife, let's go and let's see the world.
Wish I had done
on
it.
somebody else's dime, you
Yeah.
know. So, but while I was there, I was in constant contact with dental school and said, hey, you know, I'm coming back. You know, what do you need me to do? And so when I came back from Italy, I took some summer school classes just to prove that I could still cheat.
Crack the books.
And got in the class of '84. And I'd always wanted to be a dentist. In fact, when I was being recruited out of high school to play collegiately, I was asking the coaches and the universities, more importantly, do you have a dental school attached to the university? One of my the teams I was looking at or the schools was Vanderbilt, but they said, well, we don't have one. We're attached to UT, but you know, and I was looking. You know, even then I was like, I want to go straight from
path.
right there. You know, I don't want to have to do anything else, and not even thinking of playing professional basketball. So anyway. So went to dental school, and that was what I'd always wanted to do. My roommate in college, Steve Allfeld, who's an orthopedic surgeon here in Indianapolis, was a good guy to have as a roommate.
I bet.
You know, and at that time, med school, you know, you had to have whatever it was.
Sure.
And I was comfortably in a dental school.
A good student.
A good student, right? Well, now, to get into dental school now is a real tough grind. I mean, the GPAs are about the same and all that. It's a little different. But no, that was what I wanted to do, and started that in '84 as a general dentist.
Funny story. So when I wanted to go to law school, had decided my junior year, I went in to see Coach. And you know what he always told us. He, after we gave him everything, he'd do anything he could for us. So I thought that was one of those conversations to have.
Should have come to me first.
I said, Coach, I think I want to go to law school. Yeah. And Coach said, I've seen your grades. What do you expect me to do?
I'm no miracle worker.
But I buckled down and it worked out.
Yeah.
Well, so you were a practicing dentist for how many years?
32 years.
32 years, and you started a new venture. And tell the people about the new venture.
Sure, thanks.
It's right here, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, exactly. Aurora. It's
and
Aurora.
I told him to do that, by the way.
But Aurora without the U, because my partner, who happens to also be an IU basketball, an IU grad, but IU basketball alum too, Brian Evans, and I started a snoring and sleep apnea clinic, if you will. Several years ago, and it's been 15 or 16 now, when I was still a general dentist, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea.
Okay.
And at that time, did the sleep test, everything that we did, and was offered a CPAP machine. I couldn't wear the CPAP machine. I'm claustrophobic. So it got me interested in what are the alternatives, and lo and behold, hey, dentists can help out here. And it was still somewhat in its infancy. And so I started doing more and more, and I was my first patient. And then, of course, as we do in healthcare, my next patients were family members. Yeah. Of course, they don't pay well, but they don't complain either, all right? So you work it out, and then go, hey, there's something to this. So I literally fell in love with that. The whole snoring and sleep apnea arena, if you will, is one that interested me because it got me back to kind of consulting with and working with physicians.
Oh, sure.
So it was, hey, this is different than what I was doing.
This is an application you wear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's almost like a mouth guard.
Think mouth guard, only a lot thinner, more custom. Well, absolutely custom made.
Yeah.
But it does fit on top teeth, lower teeth, and it makes sure that when you fall asleep, I fall asleep, our lower jaw is in a position somewhat forward, a comfortable forward position. We've found through science and through studies that movement right there will open the airway for a lot of people. Not everybody, but a lot of people. Certainly, those people that snore, it's kind of a slam dunk if we could just put you in one of those things and let you sleep for a couple of nights. And that's what Brian and I, we worked at it. He was in medical sales, and I said, hey, I need to get in and see more docs. But the more we talked, we said, no, what we need to do is we need to go to the people, and that's kind of where the genesis of Aurora came, and it's all about making sure people know I'm actually reaching out to the 1 million snorers that are around Marion County. Just the 8. I mean,
You're going to reach them right now.
Yeah, okay, that's right. And come on in. We got a deal for you.
How do they find you?
Yeah, just aurorasleep.com on the website, but 317-482-7900. Or look up Greeno and Brian Evans. We both wore number 34. I'm a simple guy. I said, I got to have a partner in this, and I got to remember his number. Yeah, it's got to be 34. And we were just talking about that today. He wore 34. He was telling me because of Walter Payton. I wore 34 because my brother wore 4. And 24 was already taken, so I said, 34. So I'm a little more simple than Brian.
I heard an interview, and I know, but talk about the name Aurora and where it came from.
So Brian and I, we asked an advertising group to come, hey, help us with branding and this kind of thing. This was early on, and they kind of listed a few things, and we were kind of, and then came to, Aurora, and it was like, oh, okay, and we, that sounds better than anything else because most of it was these cute, snores and stuff like that. So we get to, but Brian, he's mulling it over and he goes home to his wife and he says, Aaron, how'd it go? Blah, blah, blah. She goes, hey, and the last one they gave was Aurora. She goes, oh, Aurora.
I like that.
I like it. And he goes, what? Sleeping Beauty.
It's from Disney.
It's Disney, right? And then he asks his daughters, "Oh, Aurora from Disney." He calls me and he says, "Hey, ask your wife about Aurora." And hey, yeah, huh? Oh, Disney. Then my granddaughters and all this kind of stuff. So and it's Sleeping Beauty, so it fit. But the AURORA was pretty much taken.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we're pretty simple guys. We just take the A out.
How does it work professionally? Because I talked to Evans a couple weeks ago. I got the impression that he's out in the field trying to find you business, but you're the science behind this whole thing. Accurate?
Accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I told you. I said I'm sorry I have to change around my schedule a little bit, but Evans had me working. So I mean,
he got you patience.
Yeah, he got me patience. Yeah. So it's. We're excited about it. We just want to get the word out because the most common thing we hear when people come in to see me, whether they have sleep apnea or snoring, because we see both folks, and whether they've tried a CPAP or tried anything or not, but usually the people that come in with CPAP say, I didn't know there was an alternative.
Right.
And I said, me either 15 years ago, but there is, and it's scientifically based, and even the Academy of Sleep Physicians who write all the rules state that, hey, oral device therapy is appropriate therapy for most people, unless you're in the severe category. And then if you're in the severe category and you can't wear CPAP or just can't tolerate it, yes, then it's also good for severe. And so I've treated many people with severe sleep apnea with the same devices we treat, for snoring sometimes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's working out well.
So when we come back, we're going to dive into Steve Green's career, and we're going to start with his high school career at Sellersburg and hear about what it's like to play for your dad in high school basketball when we come back. Welcome back to the show with Steve Green. Greeno, I want to talk about your high school days at Silver Creek, and why don't we start and just have you talk about what basketball nights were like in southern Indiana on a Friday or Saturday night. Some of the gyms you played in,
Sure.
some of the Silver Creek enemies that brought those fans out.
Yeah, and my father coached at Silver Creek 2 different times. So when I was a youngster, up until I think 5th grade, before he was kind of in demand and was hired by Connorsville, and after that Frankfort, and then back to Silver Creek. So the first time it was great stuff. As a kid, your dad's a coach, man, the popcorn, and my heroes were all his players, and I got to go to practices, and my older brother RT and I, we got to play against those guys, because we're the coach's son, right?
Sure.
That's the best way to get in with the coach. I thought that was the case at IU too, but
didn't work out that way.
But anyway, so there was all of that, remember those things. But coming back around and now playing for your dad, and at that high school that I always loved, it was a kind of a dream come true for RT and me to come back there. I came back as a sophomore. He was a junior. He had played at Frankfort for a year or two, and so anyway, we had a 3,500 seat arena, packed, and Sellersburg had 2,200 people, so we had this 3,500, and it was always sold out. But again, we understand that there are more things to do now than back then. We got that, but it was where to be on a Friday night.
And this is 1967, 68, 69.
Yeah, right. We returned back, 69, and then I graduated in 71, so our best team was the first team that we had. When we returned, we went to the semi-state that year. So anyway, that was easy. We'll do that again a couple more times, right? No, but nonetheless, so to play with RT, to play with, for my dad, was a real joy. But by the same token, and RT probably could tell the same story. When RT was a senior and I was a junior, he and Dad got into it, and he kicked him out right there. And I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Laughed all the next year. Guess who gets tossed? It's the old man. You're out of here. And I go home and I tell my mom, and she goes, "What are you doing home early?" And I said, "The coach kicked me out." She goes,
"The coach."
"Well, I'll talk to the coach tonight." And I said, "It's always nice to be, your mother knows the coach real well." So anyway, but our rivalries down there, the big school rivalry was Jeffersonville.
Sure.
And Mike Flynn
Sure.
was my, so we were rivals in summer, you know, and we didn't have AAU. We just met up at the park.
Yeah.
And, you know, plus Mike and I, RT and Mike's brother and some other guys, we'd always, you know, we were gunslingers because you had to find out how good are we. And the only place to do that was Louisville.
Yeah.
You know, so we'd go to the Dust Bowls over there, right? Yeah. Iroquois and Shawnee and, you know.
I bet you held your own.
Oh, yeah. One game and out, you know, and then we were watching all the U of L guys. But still, that was great stuff because the next year you come back, now, you know, it's just
We've
like
got
anything
next.
else. We do. Yeah, now we got our rhythm. But, yeah, Mike and I were bitter rivals. And even in college, obviously, you know, he went to UK and I went to IU. So that was the big school rival. Madison, where my dad and mom graduated from. And so that was, you know, kind of the mecca for the Green family was, hey, Madison, my dad played for Ray Eddy, the Hall of Famer who went on to Purdue. By the way, Ray Eddy, you know, was the other guard with a guy named John Wooden.
Yeah.
I mean, this
goes back. Yeah.
It's
a lot of history.
A lot of history, and I knew.
And Madison might have won it in 50, something like
that. They did,
yeah.
With Spence, you know, with an attorney. I mean, soon to be attorney, a Yale grad, Spence Snyder. But nonetheless, you know, so Madison had this great history, you know, basketball. But we were starting to beat them, you know, and it was absolutely. So those are the bigger schools. But Jennings County was a big one. Corydon and, you know, Paoli, that was the Mid-Southern Conference. So we were, you know, that Paoli was probably the farthest away for us. But, yeah, those were big rivals. Charleston around us. Providence was the Catholic school near us. And Silver Creek has a holiday tournament, like, you know, right after Christmas. And it's the longest running tournament in the state of Indiana of the same four schools.
Okay.
You know, so it's Charleston, and it was Providence, and it was Clarksville, and it was Silver Creek. So we just took turns beating up on each other.
What year were you when you went to the Sima State?
69.
And what year were you?
Oh, I was a sophomore.
So we have that in common.
Yeah. Oh, yeah?
I made it to Hinkle as a sophomore.
Yeah.
We were supposed to
75,
win.
right? What?
In 75,
yeah.
Sammy Drummer.
Yeah.
And so you go up and you play a pretty well-known squad. Maybe George McGinnis.
George McGinnis, Steve Downing, Wayne Pack. Yeah, that's right. I don't know these guys. Jim Arnold. and
pretty good team.
Okay, those four guys went on to Division I basketball. Three of them played professional basketball. The fifth member of that team was a guy named Larry Highball, who was the state's leading scorer in football, went to IU on a football scholarship.
Absolutely.
Not a bad team, okay?
No, really good. Really good.
And I remember my dad, our strategy was going to be, hey, let's let the Arnold kid shoot, you know? Jimmy
That
Arnold.
didn't work out so well.
It's his first four jumpers. My dad calls timeout.
You know, it's 8-0,
and he had that look on his face like, anybody else got it?
That's what happens the first time you call zone, right? They hit the first three shots.
It was perfect.
What was it like as a sophomore from Sellersburg walking into Hinkle?
Oh, that, I knew, but I didn't know. I had no idea what to get on that floor. I mean, it was we took the big bus ride up. My dad invited a lot of people because he knew. Yeah. And we were taking pictures and the whole deal. And you get your practice session in. This was like, what do you get 2 or 3 days before we used to be able to do that. Sure. So we had a great time on that. But that day, walking down to that court, that's because I'd gone to Hinkle for, 66 and 67. Okay. Willie Long came down from Fort Wayne.
So you'd been to see games.
Oh, I'd been to see games, but it was like, sometimes I want to be here, but not against Indianapolis, Washington. That was not the way. And those guys, people at Sellersburg and Silver Creek still talk about it. Say, hey, they didn't blow us off the court. They beat us by 21, and that was somewhat of
85-64.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's right. But as George and Steve told me later, said, we never played hard in the afternoon, don't you?
We were just warming up.
And they didn't press us, and they had a famous press. So that night they played Jack Sindel, Kim Pemberton, who went to IU, and a friend of mine but Jackson Dale played that night, and they started with the press. And it was
game over.
Game over. And we're like, let's
glad they didn't do that to us.
Don't do that to us. But Pemberton always said, he said, guys, we had you scouted. We had Silver Creek scouted, but
didn't know we were going to play tonight.
You were going to get upset by Indianapolis, Washington.
1971, you graduate from Sellersburg. You're on the All-Star team. You get to play in Hinkle again.
Yeah.
With Flynn again.
Yeah.
And just talk about that experience a little bit in the last minute here.
That that was what I always wanted to be. I mean, I have to admit it. And when my dad told me I was was elected to the Indiana All-Stars, that was probably the happiest day of my life. Certainly up to that point, there's no question. I'd been, my first Indiana All-Star game was at Freedom Hall watching the 1964 Indiana All-Star team versus Kentucky with a guy named Wes Unsold over here.
Yeah.
The only guy that they had to get special gym shorts for him. His thighs are so big, and later on I got to play against him again in the big league, and he still had those big thighs. That's right. But no, that was it. I loved it.
So it was Hinkle and
Freedom Hall
back then.
Yeah.
Did you guys win both games?
No, you don't get cocky 17, 18-year-olds beating somebody really badly at Hinkle and think we're going to kill them down there, and they came back and they beat us. Jimmy Dan Connor, I think, was their Mr. Basketball, but UK guys.
We're going to get to have another session with you. I'm so appreciative of you being here. We've heard about life after basketball in Sellersburg. We're going to get to hear a lot more. All of that when we come back. Greeno, thanks for joining us for this edition of the Hoosier Basketball Experience. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. It doesn't take me much to get wound up over Indiana basketball in general.
And the good news is we get to have Steve Green back again for another edition of the Hoosier Basketball Experience where we will explore those days with Coach Knight and IU as well as an NBA career. Thanks again for joining us. See you next week.